Dan and Amy, and let's get a little pre-holiday assessment of where things stand with the tax reform package that passed out of the House and the prospects for something similar to get out of the Senate as soon as next week so it can be reconciled, and this gets done before the Christmas holiday.
Yes.
For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Steve Moore, Chief Economist of the Heritage Foundation, Wall Street Journal columnist, Senior Economist for CNN. Steve.
Happy Thanksgiving, Steve.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys. You know, I spent my first 25 years in Chicago for Thanksgiving, and I always have a kind of nostalgia this time of year for no better place in the country to celebrate Thanksgiving than Chicago, Illinois.
Yes, for one day only. Steve, Steve.
Come on, Dad.
Where are we with our friend Ron Johnson and other recalcitrant members of the Republican caucus in the Senate on tax reform?
Okay, Dan, first of all, cheer up, okay? Cheer up. This is Thanksgiving,
yeah, Dan.
right?
Gobble.
Let's show some optimism here for once, okay? We're going to get this done, all right? I have talked to Ron Johnson. I think, he has a legitimate point, by the way, guys, that he thinks that there's not enough tax cuts for small businesses, and I happen to agree with him on this. I hope that the bill is improved as in the Senate so that, the 27 million small businessmen and women out there get more of a tax cut than they're getting. I mean, they will get a reduction in their taxes, but I think they deserve more. I also want to see the highest income tax rate cut. Now, I know what you're thinking, then. Steve Moore is an apologist for the greedy rich, the top 1%. Well, I want them to get a tax cut because I think that's the deal, right? You close the loopholes and you cut tax rates for everybody. And those evil people in the top 1% that they talk about on MSNBC and CNN and, how horrible they are, those are the job creators in this economy. They're the people who are writing the paychecks, folks.
Well, if you keep reading every headline, a middle-class tax cut, hardly. Another secret tax hike for the middle class slipped into the bill. So what is happening here? Please help me. I see one more commercial, too. My head's going to fall off.
Well, the irony of that claim, by the way, is that my phone has been ringing off the hook for the last week, from wealthier people who are basically saying, I get screwed under this tax bill. My taxes are going to go up. So meanwhile, the media is saying it's a big tax cut for the rich. But, for rich people who live in Illinois or New York or Connecticut or California, their taxes may actually go up because they may get a little bit of a tax rate reduction, but they're losing. If you are losing your state and local tax deduction here, which I think is a very, very good thing. We've talked about this before. There's no reason that low tax states should have to subsidize the flabby services of high tax states. But it is not a tax cut for the rich. It is a tax cut that will benefit businesses, will benefit workers, will benefit families, and shame on the Democrats, by the way, and I'm going to shout out the Illinois Democrats in the House of Representatives, who not one of them voted for a tax cut this year. It's unbelievable. Not a single Democrat in the entire House of Representatives, Dan and Amy, voted to cut taxes on businesses and families.
What happens from your sense of talking to these policymakers? What happens if Roy Moore wins that special election? Are they going to move to expel him?
It's interesting you asked me this question because I was on CNN Tuesday night talking about this very subject, and I'm not an expert on it, but I'm glad you mentioned this because it's gone viral, and I want a chance to defend myself. What I said was, they asked me, do you think Donald Trump should denounce Roy Moore and tell people not to vote for him? And I said, look, I think Roy Moore's a creep. I think his actions are creepy, and I don't think I could, in good conscience, probably vote for him if I lived in Alabama. But I said, number one, I think this is not a decision that should be made by people in the media. It's not a decision that should be made by people in Illinois or New York or anywhere else. This is up to the people in Alabama. They've heard the evidence, and they should make it a jury of his peers to decide whether they want him in the Senate. And the second point I made, which is absolutely infuriated the left, is I said, look, neither party has a moral high ground in this race because the Democrat in this race is for partial birth abortion. And I said a lot of Catholics and a lot of Christians think that partial birth abortion is almost tantamount to murder, and or at least manslaughter. And oh my God, the left has gone so crazy over this. But I stand by my comments. I mean, I think this is a tough decision for people in Alabama because both of the candidates are so defective. Now, how does this relate to the tax cut?
Right.
You're right. I mean, if the Republicans lose this seat, and they could very well, then all of a sudden you only have 51 Republicans in the Senate. It makes it harder to pass, and that's why, Dan, if that comes to pass, Republicans have to pass this bill not by December 23rd, but by December 12th. Before the new senator gets sworn in. So that moves up the timetable by about 10 days.
By the way, just a point about your comparison with Jones. It's interesting because we talked to Star Parker yesterday, and she made this point about the left generally, not specific to the Alabama race. But isn't it interesting the left all of a sudden wants to impose rules of moral rectitude when it comes to abortion? They want 14-year-olds to get an abortion without mom or dad's knowledge, much less consent. They've got no rules whatsoever. Hollywood has a movie out right now. Amy was mentioned it before. This new movie with Armie Hammer that's generating Oscar buzz because it's about two dudes falling in love, 25-year-old man and a 17-year-old boy.
Yeah, it's called Call Me by Your Name.
So, but the whole idea of the left now becoming outraged over sexual conduct, we would say misconduct, and the allegations against Roy Moore, and I think they're legitimate as you do. But otherwise, it's Sodom and Gomorrah, it's Caligula for the left, and everything's fine.
Well, this is the point. You know, I made this point on CNN the other night, too, and it also drove the left crazy. I said, look, I'm not an apologist by any way. I mean, I do think Roy Moore is a creep, and you know, for a 30-year-old to date a 15-year-old, I mean, I have a big problem with that. But here's the point. Ted Kennedy, you know, we know what happened in the backseat of his car. And by the way, not only was Ted Kennedy not expelled from the Senate, he is still considered by liberals the lion of the Senate.
Yeah.
You know, maybe a predator lion, but he was a lion. What about, Chris Dodd? I mean, his sexual misconduct was well known in Washington. Nothing was ever done about that. What about Robert C. Byrd? I mean, Robert C. Byrd, we live under the Byrd rule, by the way, in the United States Senate today. Robert C. Byrd was a card-carrying member of the Ku Klux Klan. I'm not making this up. He was a member of the Ku Klux Klan, and he served in the Senate for 40 years. And the Democrats never batted an eye about that. So all of a sudden, they're trying to claim a moral high ground, and that there's incredible misconduct on both parties here. I mean, these guys, most people in Congress are not the most upstanding people.
We're learning that.
Politics is my whole life.
And then this morning, the Detroit Free Press, the editorial board, is calling on John Conyers to resign after a second woman has come forward saying that he sexually harassed her and tried to fondle her on a daily basis, and that he used tax dollars to pay off another woman $27,000. Yeah.
That's pretty bad, isn't it? I mean, how can anybody defend that? You're exactly right. And so there is a double standard here. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I think the people in Alabama have a very, very difficult decision to make here. And look, people are blaming Trump. They're saying, well, he's not condemning, he's not telling people in Alabama not to vote for Roy Moore. Well, I mean, look, as I said, both candidates are seriously flawed. This guy's a total left winger who doesn't necessarily stand with the values of people in Alabama. He might win in Illinois, by the way. I don't know if he can win in Alabama, so we will see. But I'm going to stick with my prediction, guys, because this is the eve of Thanksgiving, that we are going to get tax cut passed. We're going to get it signed into law on maybe December 23rd or December 24th, and it will be the biggest tax cut since Ronald Reagan. And Dan and Amy, even you guys are going to get a tax cut here.
Not Amy. She makes too much money.
I am so tired of your skepticism and your negativity.
Amy's got like a $15 million compound on the lake. I mean, she's not, the property taxes here.
I live in an A-frame in Lakeview that everybody wants to buy to tear down.
So I got another economics question for you, Steve. This is going to be an underreport.
Guys, I'm a typical liberal. I'm not making any of the dinner for tomorrow night, but I'm eating it all.
There you go. There you go. This is going to get lost over the weekend, but I want to point this out because it's particularly relevant to Illinois. The U.S. military is overhauling its retirement system effective Jan 1, 2018. This announcement, they're changing the way that the pensions work for servicemen and women. It's substantial structural changes. Now they have defined contribution plans as opposed to the defined benefit plans we have here in Illinois that we can't afford. They're going to incentivize more saving on the front end. They're going to reduce the payout a little bit on the back end. I mean, this is real, entitlement reform at the federal level, projected to save as much as $2 billion from the cost of military pensions. Boy, if it's good enough for our servicemen and women, maybe it's good enough for Illinois state workers, Steve.
Amen. I can't improve on that, and I don't simply make one last point. The stock market is up by $5 trillion. That's not $5 billion, $5 trillion at T since Trump was elected. And people say, well, this is only the liberals the rich people who benefit from this. Every single pension plan in America, the 55 million 401k plans, the 30 million IRAs, those are all invested in the stock market. A healthy stock market is good for people's retirement accounts.
All right, he is Steve Moore, Wall Street Journal columnist, senior economist for CNN, where he got excoriated the other day, and Heritage Foundation chief economist. Steve, thanks for joining us as always. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, thanks for defending me, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving. And he joined us on our turnkey Pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Despite President